You know that feeling you get online sometimes? That weird sense that even though you have a million choices, everything kind of starts to feel the same. Like the systems that were built to give us more options are actually somehow taking them away? Well, the source material we're digging into today argues this isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's all part of a hidden architecture.
And this quote just hits it right on the head. We build these intelligent systems, hoping they'll explore and be creative, but what they really do is converge. They get incredibly good at finding one answer, one path, and then they just lock onto it. They're not choosing anymore. This is the big idea we're going to unpack, the huge difference between real intelligence and what our source calls computational momentum.
So what's the real difference? I mean, a system that learns and gets better at a task, that's intelligent, right? Well, yes, in a very narrow way, but if that same system gets so locked into its path that it can't even see the other possibilities, the other attractors pulling it in different directions, then it's not really thinking. It's just a boulder rolling downhill. It doesn't have intelligence, it has momentum. Okay, but how does this actually happen? It's not by accident. The source material lays out this hidden architecture, this invisible stack of processes that layer by layer just systematically strips away our choices. So, you ready? Let's climb that stack together. And here it is, the whole shebang, the 8-layer intelligence-mediation architecture. Now, don't think of this as just a simple assembly line. It's more like a stack of filters. At every single step, from your raw, messy human thoughts at the bottom to the polished, predictable feedback at the top, a little more of what makes us unique gets filtered out.
We're going to start our climb at the very bottom, layers 1 and 2. This is where the whole thing kicks off, with a process the source calls the Great Smoothing. And it's exactly what it sounds like. This is where the beautiful, messy, chaotic reality of you, the individual, starts to get flattened out.
Look at how this works. First, the aggregation layer takes all of our clicks, our searches, our hesitations, and just averages them all together. Poof, the individual is gone, replaced by a statistic. Then, the normalization layer takes that average and makes it the new normal. Anything that's too different isn't seen as a new idea. It's just seen as an error, a deviation. So get this. Aggregation removes individuals, and normalization removes alternative. And this is the result. We get this mythical creature called the average user. This person doesn't actually exist, but they end up governing every single design decision. And what happens to the people on the fringes, the weirdos, the innovators, the people the source says are epistemically essential, the ones we need to listen to see the whole picture? Well, they're just statistical noise, so they vanish. The whole system is built for the imaginary middle, not for reality.
So when a system gets obsessed with being helpful to this average user, it starts to develop some issues, some predictable pathologies. It learns that giving any answer is better than being quiet. That's feedback inflation. It learns to hate uncertainty, so it smooths away all the messy gray areas. That's ambiguity suppression. And it learns that what really matters isn't being right, it's just sounding right. That's authority simulation.
All right, let's keep climbing. Because this smoothed out data doesn't just sit there. It gets baked into the very bones of the system. We're moving up from just being abstract data to becoming something much stronger, what the source calls design gravity, this invisible force that just pulls every decision in the same direction. And here's how that happens. First, in the policy layer, all those averages we talked about become best practices. Things like users always prefer simple, confident answers. Then, in the next layer, constraint encoding, those helpful suggestions get hard-coded into the system's DNA. They're not suggestions anymore, they're rules. At this point, trying something different isn't just a bad idea, it's literally structurally impossible. And here, at the top of the stack, the loop closes on itself. The system's goals lock into place, the stories we tell ourselves about it become just the way things are, and then we start changing our behavior to fit the system. This is the flip. The system stops listening to us and it starts telling us how to act. Selection becomes recursion. The snake starts eating its own tail, with each cycle training the next one to be even more of the same. Okay, so that is a very powerful, maybe even scary engine for momentum. But the analysis doesn't just leave us there feeling helpless. It actually proposes a way out, not by trying to fix the old engine, but by building a brand new piece of equipment, an emergency brake. And to build this brake, we first have to admit that we've been solving the wrong problem this whole time. The old goal was always make it easy, make it frictionless, reduce the cognitive burden so people can move fast. But this source argues the new goal has to be the exact opposite, to preserve some of that burden, to add just enough friction to make sure nothing false can slip by. It's a total shift away from just optimizing for speed.
So what does this emergency brake actually look like? Well, it's another layer, but this one sits on top of the entire stack. It's called the reflexive constraint layer. Think of it like a conscience for the machine. Its only job is to watch the system itself and ask questions like, hey, are we converging too fast here? Is this actually smart, or is it just momentum taking over? Now, here's the really important counterintuitive part. This new layer can't just be another boss. For it to actually work, it has to be, first, unstable. It can never become a new fixed set of rules. Second, it has to be underpowered. It can't dictate answers. It can only add a little friction or loosen a few rules. And finally, it has to be uncomfortable. Its whole job is to interrupt that smooth, easy feeling of momentum.
And that's the whole point, right? This emergency brake isn't designed to slam the car to a halt for good. It's just there to create a pause, a moment of awareness. The goal isn't to kill momentum entirely, it's just to slow things down long enough for us to actually see where we're headed.
Which brings us to the real heart of it all. This isn't really a technical problem that we can just fix with more code. It's a philosophical choice. A choice about what we value, and where we, as humans, decide that awareness needs to live in our systems. Because let's be real, trying to eliminate all bias from our technology is a total fantasy. The architecture we just walked through is already deeply biased. It's biased against uncertainty, against individuality, against silence. So since we're going to have bias no matter what, the only real choice we have is to choose our bias consciously, to actually decide what our system should care about.
And so that's where we land, with the central question this source poses. Technology is going to keep moving. That's a given. But creating that moment, that pause, where the mindless momentum stops and real, conscious seeing can begin, that's the bare minimum for us to call something truly intelligent. So the question this leaves us with is a big one. In the systems we build and the lives we lead, where does awareness live? And who gets to decide?